The wind howled. It tore at my clothes. I could barely see the road ahead. Babusar top was known for its treacherous weather. But this storm was something else entirely. It came out of nowhere. One moment, clear skies. The next, a tempest. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. My knuckles turned white. The car swerved on the slick mountain road. Visibility dropped to near zero. I knew I couldn't keep driving, but where could I stop? There was nothing for miles, just steep drops and jagged rocks. My headlights caught something. A sign? I squinted. Lodge, 2 kilometers ahead. Hope surged through me, then dread. Who would build a lodge up here, in this desolate place? But I had no choice. The storm was getting worse. I inched forward. The car groaned against the wind. Every meter felt like a mile. My heart raced. Would I make it? The road curved sharply, and then I saw it, a building, looming out of the mist, my salvation, or so I thought. It rose before me like a specter, dark, imposing. The hotel stood stark against the stormy sky, lightning flashed. For a moment I saw it clearly. Old, Victorian, out of place on this rugged mountaintop. Windows stared down at me, like hollow eyes, judging, waiting. I parked hastily. The wind nearly tore the car door from my grasp. Rain lashed at my face. I grabbed my bag, ran towards the entrance. Each step felt heavy, as if something was trying to hold me back, warning me, but I pressed on. I had no choice. The porch creaked under my feet, paint peeled from the walls. The door loomed before me, heavy, ancient. I reached for the handle. It was ice cold. I hesitated. Something felt wrong, very wrong. But the storm raged behind me. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind me. The sound echoed through the lobby. It was dim inside, musty. The air felt thick, heavy with age and secrets. I stood dripping on a faded carpet. My eyes struggled to adjust. Shadows danced in the corners. Were they just tricks of the light, or something more? A bell tinkled, soft, discordant. I jumped. My heart pounded. From behind a dusty desk, a figure emerged, an old man. His skin was pale, almost translucent. His eyes, they didn't seem to focus on me, but through me. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Welcome," he wheezed. His voice was like dry leaves. "We don't get many visitors." I stammered a reply. Asked for a room. Any room. He nodded slowly. Reached for a key. It was old, brass. The number 13 gleamed dully in the dim light. Of course, it had to be 13. The old man shuffled from behind the desk. "Follow me," he said. His feet made no sound on the carpet. I followed. The hallway stretched before us. Long, dark. Portraits lined the walls. Their eyes seemed to follow us, judging, accusing. Of what, I didn't know. We climbed stairs. They groaned under our weight. The air grew colder, staler. The old man stopped abruptly, turned to face me. His eyes were empty. "Room 13, he said. "Enjoy your stay." He handed me the key. His fingers brushed mine, ice cold. Then he was gone, melting into the shadows, leaving me alone, in front of room 13. The key felt heavy in my hand. Alive. I inserted it into the lock. It turned with a groan, like it was in pain. The door swung open. Darkness greeted me. Thick, oppressive. I fumbled for a light switch, found one, flicked it on. The bulb flickered weakly, casting more shadows than light. The room was sparse. A bed, a chair, a mirror, all old, all worn. The wallpaper peeled in places, revealing darker patches beneath, like wounds. I set my bag down. It made no sound on the threadbare carpet. The silence was deafening, unnatural. Even the storm outside seemed muted. I moved to the window, tried to look out. My reflection stared back at me, pale, frightened. But there was something else, a shadow, just behind my shoulder. I whirled around. Nothing. The room was empty, but the feeling remained. I wasn't alone. Something watched, waited. Exhaustion hit me suddenly, like a physical blow. I stumbled to the bed, sat down heavily. The springs creaked in protest. I should leave, find somewhere else, anywhere else. But where? The storm still raged, and I was so tired, so very tired. I lay back, closed my eyes. Just for a moment, I told myself. Just a moment's rest. A sound woke me, soft, barely there. Whispers, coming from the walls, the ceiling, everywhere and nowhere. I sat up, heart racing. The room was darker now. The bulb had died. Only moonlight filtered through the grimy window, casting strange shadows. The whispers grew louder, urgent, angry. I couldn't make out words, just a sense of malevolence, of hatred. It pressed down on me, made it hard to breathe. I tried to stand. My legs felt weak, unsteady. The whispers swelled, a crescendo of malice. I stumbled to the door, grabbed the handle. It wouldn't turn. Panic rose in my throat. I was trapped. The whispers were all around me now, no longer soft, but harsh, guttural, inhuman. I pounded on the door, screamed for help. My voice was swallowed by the cacophony. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Silence fell, heavy, oppressive. I slid to the floor, shaking. Tears streamed down my face. What was happening? Was I going mad? I hugged my knees to my chest, tried to make myself small, invisible. But I knew, whatever was in this room, it saw me, and it was far from finished. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, hours, time seemed to have lost all meaning. The silence stretched on, broken only by my ragged breathing, and then, movement, in the corner of my eye. I turned my head slowly, dreading what I might see. The shadows were moving, writhing, like living things. They peeled away from the walls, the floor, coalescing into shapes, human-like, but wrong, distorted. Their edges blurred and shifted, as if they couldn't quite decide what to be. I watched, paralyzed with fear. One shadow separated from the rest, drifted towards me. I pressed myself against the door, trying to sink through it, to escape. The shadow loomed over me, a dark void where a face should be. It reached out, a tendril of darkness extending towards my face. I screamed. The sound tore from my throat, raw, primal. The shadow recoiled. For a moment it seemed surprised, then angry. The other shadows surged forward, a wave of darkness, of malice. I closed my eyes, braced for... I didn't know what. Cold, pain, oblivion, but nothing came. I opened my eyes. The room was empty. Normal, as if nothing had happened, but I knew better. This was just the beginning. The calm didn't last, it couldn't. The air grew colder. My breath misted before me. The shadows began to dance again, but this time they had form, purpose. They took shape. People, but not people. Twisted, wrong. Their faces were masks of agony, of rage. They moved towards me, slow, deliberate. Their hands reached out, clawing, grasping. I scrambled to my feet, backed away. But there was nowhere to go. The phantoms advanced, their mouths opened. A chorus of screams filled the air. Not just in the room, but in my head. I covered my ears. It didn't help. The screams grew louder, more agonized. I could feel their pain, their anger, their despair. It threatened to overwhelm me, to drag me down into their world of shadows and torment. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room spun around me, and then I saw it, a glimmer, in the mirror, a crack of light. Hope surged through me. With strength born of desperation, I lunged for the mirror. The phantoms tried to stop me. Their cold hands grasped at my clothes, my skin. But I broke free. I reached the mirror, and with all my might, I smashed my fist into it. Section 8. A desperate flight. The mirror shattered. Fragments rained down, cutting my hands, my face. But I didn't care, because behind the mirror was a passage. Narrow, dark, but a way out. I didn't hesitate. I dove through the opening. Glass tore at my clothes, my skin. The screams behind me reached a fever pitch. I ran, stumbled, fell. The passage twisted and turned. I couldn't see. I used my hands, feeling my way along rough stone walls. Behind me I could hear them. The shadows, the phantoms, pursuing, their rage palpable. I ran faster, my lungs burned, my legs ached, but I didn't stop. Ahead I saw light, faint, flickering. But there, I pushed myself harder. The passage began to slope upwards. I clawed my way up, slipping on loose stones. The light grew brighter. I could make out an opening, freedom, just a few more steps. I burst out of the passage into the cold night air. The storm had passed. Stars twinkled overhead. I gulped in deep breaths, looked back. The passage was gone, as if it had never existed. In its place stood the hotel, dark, silent, as if nothing had happened. But I knew I had escaped. But at what cost? Section 9, The Cold Light of Dawn. I don't remember much of what happened next. I ran, stumbled down the mountain road, away from that accursed hotel. My car was gone, vanished, like it had never been there. But I didn't care. I just had to get away, as far as possible. Dawn found me miles away, exhausted, battered. A passing truck driver found me, took me to the nearest town. The hospital staff were kind, concerned. They treated my cuts, my bruises, asked what had happened. I couldn't tell them. Who would believe me? As I lay in the hospital bed, I tried to make sense of it all. Had it been real? Or some vivid hallucination brought on by exhaustion and the storm? But my injuries were real. The terror I felt was real. Too real to dismiss. Days passed. I recovered, physically at least. But the memories remained. Vivid, haunting. I knew I couldn't just let it go. I had to know more. About the hotel. About what had happened there. And why. Little did I know my ordeal was far from over. The truth, I would soon discover, was far more terrifying than I could have imagined. Section 10. Unraveling the hotel's dark past. I began my investigation cautiously, quietly, asked around the town, about the hotel on Babusar top. At first people were reluctant to talk, they'd change the subject or suddenly remember urgent business elsewhere. But slowly, pieces of the story emerged. The hotel, I learned, was built in the 1920s. A retreat for the wealthy, but it had a dark history. Accidents, disappearances, strange occurrences that couldn't be explained. The locals avoided it, said it was cursed, haunted by the souls of those who had died there. One old man, his eyes clouded with cataracts, told me more. Of a massacre, in the 1940s, a group of travelers seeking shelter from a storm just like me, they were never seen again. The hotel was abandoned after that, left to rot, but not empty. Never empty. I dug deeper, found old newspaper articles, police reports. They confirmed the story, but there was more. Whispers of dark rituals, of a doorway open to somewhere else, a place of shadows and torment. I felt a chill run down my spine. I had seen that place, felt its cold touch, and somehow I had escaped. Section 11. Scars that never fade. Months have passed since that night, but the memories haven't faded. They're etched into my mind, into my soul. I see the shadows in every dark corner, hear the whispers in every quiet moment. The scars on my hands have healed, but the ones inside remain raw. I've tried to move on, to forget, but I can't. The hotel calls to me, in my dreams, in my waking moments. It wants me back, to finish what it started. Some nights, I wake up in a cold sweat, convinced I'm back in room 13, that my escape was just a dream. I've thought about going back, to face it, to end it. But fear holds me back. What if I can't escape a second time? What if the hotel is waiting for me, hungry, angry, I'm trapped, between the need to know and the terror of finding out? So I write this down, my story, my warning, to anyone who might find themselves on Babusar top on a stormy night. If you see a hotel, don't stop, don't seek shelter, keep driving no matter how bad the storm, because what waits inside is far worse than any tempest. It's a nightmare, one that never ends, and once it has you in its grasp, it never truly lets go.